I think. Look, let me pull up the story and get your thoughts on it. This is ABC7. Nearly half of Democrats say fines and prison time appropriate for questioning vaccines, just questioning them. They also said there's, I believe, 45% would intern the unvaccinated, meaning they would take you to a designated isolated facility. I think 59% were in favor of house arrest. So when you see the alignment of the New York Times, when you see the media, when you see that there are this many people in this country who are willing to outright just arrest someone for speaking out against them, it kind of sounds like it's beyond just the media. There's something deeply rotten expanding or growing within the core of the American psyche.
It's a core value. It's the primary value of American society, which part of the American founding. I mean, this goes back to Cicero. You have to have information to make informed decisions, and that's why the First Amendment's first. It's a cliche. I question whether half of Democrats actually believe that. I think that's probably. I'm skeptical about the amount of people the media is telling you actually believe.
What was the actual question on the poll?
I suppose that would be a good one to pull up.
We could definitely look that up. But I think the scarier aspect here is that a lot of these things that some of these Democrats are calling for are policies that are implemented already in other parts of the world, and Democrats and other establishment statists want to implement here in the United States. 29%, according to this Rasmussen poll, of Democrats supported taking children away from people if they refused to take the vaccine. That's a policy that has already been instituted in some places in Canada. When we're talking about detaining people, that's happening in Austria and Australia and in other parts around the world already. So we have to understand that this slippery slope to dystopian, total totalitarian nightmare crap hole society is very close to happening because of this kind of echo chamber delusional thinking that's being perversed by the corporate media.
So what I see happening is that there are very evil people, like James mentioned earlier, it's a battle between good and evil, who know full well what they're doing and what their plans are. They want to lock you up. They want to take away your rights. And they're lying about you on purpose, gleefully, willfully, and we're having a fairness battle.
I don't think that they're going to win. I'm actually quite hopeful. Everyone's cynical, and it pisses me off. I mean, I talk about this too in this book, a chapter called Propaganda. Consent must be informed, not manufactured. All serious theories of democracy were a republic, which is also a democracy, including the economic theory, hinge on the notion that voters have reliable access to information. I think technology allows us to do that. Again, let me remind your audience, I am banned on Twitter. My organization's banned on Twitter. And our story was the #1 trending story in the world. Why? Because of the information that we released. Documents inside the Department of Defense, DARPA, a Marine Corps major fellow at the Department of Defense, wrote about this COVID and wrote about the fact that it was too risky for the Department of Defense to approve what was going on. And that story, it was about the strength of the information. And I believe that human nature is such that if people are able to see it for themselves, first-hand participant journalism, not second-hand anonymous sources, I think we're going to prevent society's collapse by continuing to do that journalism. I
agree. I think it's working. I mentioned this with CNN and MSNBC having a ratings collapse. Getting back to the darkness of this, when we see this poll from Rasmussen, I do think it's fair to point out that maybe it's a bad poll from Rasmussen. Maybe the questions aren't right, but who knows? But I will say this: Kamala Harris was raising money through Twitter to bail out rioters. In 2020, some of the most extreme riots I've ever seen. When I talk to people, I can't remember.
Minneapolis.
Yeah,
the
Minneapolis
bail
fund, but
right?
Not only that, but I mean the riots were across the country. So when we're seeing some of the worst riots we've seen in 50 years, maybe, and I talk to people about the potential for civil conflict, civil unrest, or whatever, and they say, "Oh, it's not that bad." It's because we're frogs in a pot that are boiling. When Andy, you report on this stuff, you expose who these violent extremists are. The media lies about you. All of these different institutions lie about you. They make things up. There is I don't know how you describe it. I call it a cult. They're in line with each other, but it's not like they actively collude at a national level where like a message goes out and they say, everyone say Andy knows wrong. They just all do it.
Yeah, I was quite naive in 2019 before I became more of a well-known figure and I was just a regional person in the Pacific Northwest. After my assault in the summer of 2019 that punches, kicks in the milkshakes, the hospitalization for the traumatic brain injury. I was naive enough at the time that I thought the media organizations would be out to support me. I remember Jake Tapper, I believe, was one of the very few center-left journalists who issued a tweet that condemned what happened to me, and I really appreciated that. And he got so much blowback that he ended up deleting that tweet of support.
Really?
Yeah.
And then all the hit pieces came out in a way that seemed sort of coordinated, and James can speak to this. And I was watching kind of in real time in fascination at how they can destroy someone's reputation. So there was initial outpouring support for me. So then what happened was a local blog in Portland interviewed somebody and gave this person a pseudonym. So I have no idea who this person is, who accused me of being in collaboration with this far-right group in Portland. So one, I couldn't confront my accuser. Legally, I couldn't do anything either. We don't even know the identity of this person, so we can't even write a cease and desist letter. And then this damning story and headline, which is false, from that was published in the Portland Mercury. They never reached out to me for comment, by the way, was then repeated in other publications like Slate and Vox, et cetera, and then that is cited in your Wikipedia. And then when somebody Googles you who doesn't know who you are, that's the first thing they see, and that is your reputation.
I wonder how long it's going to last, though. You know, they go after Joe Rogan, the most popular podcast in the world, and the stupidest thing you can do is lie about Joe, because the 11 million people on average who watch his show, the 50 million who've seen some of his biggest shows, the people who are fans of MMA and know him, or who just watch his Netflix stand-up, they see this story and they go, yeah, that's not true. And all of a sudden, you lie about someone as popular as Joe, and people start waking up. And now we're starting to see it. We're seeing a major shift. This poll came out. Gallup released this, one of the most credible polling institutions, that as of the fourth quarter of 2021, more people identify as Republican or Republican-leaning than Democrat for the first time since I believe it was 1991. There actually may have been a period around the 2000s where it was fairly even between the two, but this is a gap now of 5 points, right? I'm not saying Republicans are the right answer or that, you know, Democrats are always the wrong answer, but regular people are looking at the establishment. They're associating it with one side of the political spectrum and saying, I don't want to have anything to do with that.
Well, it's not just Joe. It's Joe also influencing people like Dana White, influencing people like Aaron Rodgers that are going out there and speaking these larger truths. And some people would say breaking the mass psychosis, the mass formation psychosis that, of course, the corporate media in unison tells us doesn't exist, as, of course, the Financial Times literally calls for psyops, as, of course, even the Canadian Joint Operations Command even admittedly said that they have relied on propaganda techniques used in Afghanistan with COVID because they saw it as a unique opportunity to test out their propaganda techniques on the general public.
You know, what you were saying about Joe Rogan, that's why they try and silence him. That's why these doctors and researchers and scientists came out to try and...
Not fair to call him that.
What?
Not fair to call them the doctors anymore.
Oh,
because the list had like a cannabis farmer on it.
Oh, a campus farmer.
If I may,
it was less than 100 medical doctors, some of them not even practicing.
Did they have
and
a
like
PhD?
a dentist.
Okay,
Yes.
so the letter written by a bunch of hacks, who a few of whom claim to be doctors, apparently. You know, they're going after Joe Rogan. They're going after all of these people because they don't understand that the American people can see lies, that they can see, you know, these falsehoods that are being forced upon them. And, you know, Americans go after the truth. That's one of, I think,
But I think I want to go back to what Andy was saying, because you're talking to a man here who has effectively suffered. I think that's fair to say, in some form or another. This is traumatic. I will speak personally. I suffered a kind of a form of PTSD after my New Orleans incarceration. And I was reminded of that after the FBI raid, at least for a day or two. I did. People say, are you scared? Well, of course, you're human. I mean, I've pretty much removed most of my desire to be liked by these people. I'm almost down to completely zero. I'm never going to be fully zero because I'd be a sociopath if I was zero. But I just want to talk a little about that for a minute, because it's a theme that I think is very important to discuss here, because it is a prerequisite for being effective. You know, I wrote about this, that this is an age where the loss of one's Twitter account is treated like the loss of one's life. Imagine if everyone watching this did not care if they took away the Twitter account. What impact could they have on you? Your reputation. What does that mean? Your Wikipedia page? Taking away, deplatforming you? But the moment you stop worrying about that, and you don't let that handcuff you, pun intended, is the moment you're actually able to actually be free to do the things and do the journalism. And I know what it's like. I articulate this in words better than I can off the cuff. No one can deprive me of my reputation or Andy of your reputation. They've already been deprived. We've already been deprived of that by declarations from credible journalists. That's not credible journalists. How are these journalists credible? They're credible by virtue of the decree that they are indeed credible because they say so. And to see that happen, it's traumatizing. It can make an otherwise confident man question your own perception of reality. In the beginning, it did. In the beginning of my journey, I questioned my own perception of reality. But once you get through that and get through the other side of it, which I think you have, I think any survivor of that sort of abuse develops superpowers. Like you're a stronger man than you were, you're a better journalist than you were, and you're wiser than you were. And what I've learned is the moment I've said this to you before, it's a cliche. The moment you really stop caring about what Wikipedia thinks of you and what Jack Dorsey thinks of you, they've already taken away our Twitter accounts. Eric lost his this week. We have no more Twitter accounts. We're still trending on Twitter.
Jack's gone. For all you know, he actually likes you.
Jack is a metonym for whoever the CEO is at this point. But the moment you stop giving a shit about what they think about you is the moment you're free.
Oh, yeah. It was a magic moment. I remember during Occupy Wall Street, I got a big surge of followers on Twitter. And with that, a big surge of people saying really mean things to me. And it was the first time I'd ever experienced a wave of hundreds to thousands of people just saying the nastiest fake things about me. And for a minute, I kind of freaked out. I was like, what does this mean for me? What is this going to be? What is it going to do? Am I going to be able to keep doing this? Am I going to be able to work? And then went to bed and woke up, made some food, had some bacon, watched some TV, and then I was like, nothing's happening.
It gives you tough skin.
But nothing happened.
Yeah.
And then
bacon
after
helps a lot of things, though.
It
Bacon
does.
Really
it's true.
helps.
But I'm just like, I'm living my life like normal. And then after a little while, I was like, I just figured something out. I can turn off the notifications. And then it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And there we are. Now I just don't have notifications turned on. Yeah. Why listen to these people?
And being offended is a choice. People need to understand that if someone is attacking you, if you're giving them power in that by reacting to it, you're playing into their games. And I think a lot of us in this room have dealt with a lot of crazy stuff. Me and Tim had to deal with a police raid as well. Guns in the face, everything. I was arrested. I was beat up. Andy, you were beat up. Tim, you were jumped. I think, James, you went through your stuff. And then the amount of craziness that we have to deal with, we have to understand is nothing new. This is something that, of course, the people who don't like the bigger truths exposed, usually those are the techniques they use against effective people exposing them. Look what happened to MLK. Look how the FBI treated him. The FBI literally spied on him. They got tapes of him. They sent him letters trying to get him to commit suicide. And this is the Federal Bureau of Investigations decades ago going after people who are changing society.
And I would argue that the world is round, and that catches up with the bad guys. Yes, they did all those things to him, and it is Martin Luther King Day, but as Martin Luther King said, the arc of the moral universe bends long, but it bends towards justice. So the bad guys don't get... I've seen in my life, these bad guys, it always catches up to them. Yeah, they get away with it for a little while. But
Well, look, thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Now, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.